Welcome to another edition of Go News. I'm John Keys, and we're back. Second episode back in the saddle. And I got a lot of messages last week after the previous episode aired saying, people were happy to see us back in the saddle on the news thing. And some people were actually surprised to see me taking more of a lead role on this. I mean, we know Shermichael's the news guy, right? But I mean, in this political season and climate right now, man, this guy's on every news outlet known to man. So I'm going to take Go News off his plate for a second. But also because, Go News is here to inform and educate, right? I mean, I'm still new going down the firearms rabbit hole as a responsible gun owner. And there's a lot of things out there going on that could affect me that I would otherwise be oblivious about if I'm not really paying attention, because that's how fast some of these things happen. And a lot of people tend to think that, what they think or what they might want to say about any specific action going on legally as it pertains to firearms and becoming a gun owner, they might not have a dog in the fight, or what they say or their comments or the way that they think about something might not matter. Well, that's absolutely the furthest thing from the truth. And I'm bringing Eric Pratt back on this week to talk more about that. Last week, we brought you the universal background check rule and gave you an outlet to send your comments in to let the ATF know that you don't want this rule to be enacted. Well, Eric's going to come on today to tell us a little bit more about why that's important and what other circumstances that GOA provides that type of a service and an outlet for our voices to be heard. So, Eric, welcome back to Go News.
It is great to be back. Thanks, John, so much.
Yeah, so, I got a lot of comments last week about the UBC rule. A lot of people asked, for more information as to what it meant. A lot of people were asking, hey, does this comment thing really work? I mean, some people were apprehensive because they didn't know what type of a position that would put them in. And, I tried to reassure everybody that this was definitely in their better interest if they are thinking about becoming a responsible gun owner. So if you could shed some more light on that, just to kind of let them know, like, this is kind of common practice for, Second Amendment advocates and those who support the Second Amendment.
Sure. So just to re-summarize that, in case people didn't see the earlier one, the rule we're talking about, issued by Biden's ATF, requires virtually every person who sells a gun to become a licensed gun dealer, an FFL, requires virtually every person who buys a gun, even privately, your next door neighbor, something like that. You first have to register the sale with the federal government. So for those selling guns now, you'll have to jump through the hoops set up by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives in order to sell your guns if you intend to sell them for a profit, which most people would, right? You'll have to get a gun dealer's license. You'll have to keep perfect registration records on the guns you buy or sell. You'll also have to let the ATF inspect these records, and that means that your home will have to be left open to warrantless searches by the ATF once a year. The Fourth Amendment does not apply to you anymore in the same way that it does to other Americans. That's on the selling end. On the buying end, if you want to buy a gun, your purchase is going to be registered. You're going to have to fill out a 4473 form, which people are usually familiar with in doing that at gun stores. Well, now you're going to have to do that with your next door neighbor. You're going to have to pass a background check, which identifies you to the FBI as a gun owner. So bottom line, for average Americans who want to buy or sell guns, you will be registered. And of course, that's a huge problem. Look at what they've done in other countries. Registration has been a first step to gun confiscation. We've seen that happen abroad. We've even seen that happen in this country already on some limited cases. So that's why it is important to take action. The link for your viewers is gunowners.org/GOTV. And to the second part of your question really quick, it's really important to do this because that has been useful in forcing the ATF in the past, like driving tens of thousands of people to say, we don't want this. It has forced them to either repeal their rules entirely or walk back and retreat on huge significant portions of the rule that they wanted to. And people might wonder, well, why would an agency do that? The reason is because Congress is always looking. And so if Congress is seeing this, that there's a problem there, they can threaten to reduce their funding. And that is like the worst thing that could happen to a bureaucrat. So that threat of the cut of funding is what makes them susceptible to public pressure.
There you go, guys. Right there. I mean, that's why your voice matters, because we do have control in this situation. And I mean, I know that in a lot of cases, the government likes to make us feel like we don't have control, but we actually do. So this is a prime example of, and I really urge everybody to use our link, gunowners.org/GOTV, GOTV, to send your comments in. I know a lot of people already sent their comments in. I've sent my comments in. All my family has. It's so funny, Eric, because I was talking to my mom about this, and she was like, you know what? Yeah, we can't stand for that because ain't nobody showing up to my house unexpected. I like to keep my house clean, and I'm not about to, it was that whole thing. And I was like, Mom, I think that would be the least of your worries, So yeah, it's definitely something that you guys want to pay attention to and act on very quickly. FBI data shows that since Black Friday and going into the holidays, there's been a record number of background checks, meaning that people are buying firearms for gifts. People are buying firearms for gifts for themselves and other people. So with that being said, it's like, how difficult would that be if now you have to be a registered, you have to have an FFL in order to sell or receive a firearm from somebody? That would just be absolutely crazy.
Yes, and it throws out so many additional hurdles that people will have to go through.
Right.
That's especially, for folks like you or me who, let's face it, we have lots of guns. The additional gun and hurdles, we've still got a good amount in the storehouse. But a lot of times people don't think about taking their own safety into their own hands until current events threaten it. For a woman, it might be somebody stalking them. We're seeing this with Jewish Americans today who are flocking to gun stores to buy guns because they're rightfully worried about a terror threat against them. And thank God they're able to go and immediately purchase firearms. Everything we're talking about here is going to slow that system down. I was just on a New York radio talk show where they've started in New York. They're even, even to buy ammunition, you're having to go through a background check. Well, it's gotten so bad and so bogged down, their system. People are having to go to Vermont to buy ammo, down to Florida, or they're going to, other states like Pennsylvania. What this rule is doing is basically taking that New York model and now spreading it out to the entire country, because there's nowhere you'll be able to go. When the system goes down, when the system's bogged down, and that does happen, especially when there's an increase in the number of background checks being run, or like with COVID, when FBI had fewer people manning the phone lines there to do the background checks. When those kinds of things happen, you get these delays. And so people who need a gun in an emergency, that can be really dangerous. And there are sadly certified examples, especially of women who needed guns in an emergency. The government delayed in approving them, and they're dead today because they could not get a gun to protect themselves. So, this really, a right delayed is a right denied. And that, this whole system is not built with our interests in mind and, trying to make our rights work better. No, this is going to slow the whole process down.
Yeah. Listen, guys, y'all better talk to some people from New York. If you have friends in New York that own guns, talk to them about some of how these restrictions have affected them on personal levels, on recreational levels, on safety levels. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And like Eric said, it's just to put those hurdles in front of us. And if the hurdle isn't to stop you before you get the gun, the hurdle is to potentially trip you up after you do become a gun owner. So nonetheless, our livelihood is at stake when you think about what some of these rules could actually do to us as gun owners. So like, for example, I was reading an article, Eric, about the AR-15 ban rebrand. They try to, obviously they're trying to take away AR-15s and high capacity magazines around every turn. And now they're trying to change the language to make it sound like it's something different, or there's a different reason why they're trying to substantiate this now. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is the same old, same old. But George Orwell would be proud because the sponsors of this bill are saying one thing while meaning the exact opposite. I mean, that's classic Orwellian newspeak. For example, the sponsors say the bill is intended to safeguard our constitutional right to own a firearm. But then how does the bill do this? By banning guns.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of guns. So they want to believe that gun bans somehow equals protecting our Second Amendment rights. Well, that's just a total farce. They also claim the bill is intended to protect your right to self-defense, but then they limit the number of rounds that you can use for self-defense. See, again, this is so Orwellian. That's why I say this is the same old assault weapons ban, so-called, repackaged. Instead, they've moved from the cosmetic look, the black plastic look with certain features. Now they talk about, if it's a gas-operated firearm. The fact is they're banning just as many guns as the old proposed bans, if not more. When it comes right down to it, I mean, really, they just want to return us to muskets and, bolt-action rifles. And that's part of it. They claim, these are weapons of war that we're trying to ban. The irony is they're not banning weapons of war. There's not one machine gun mentioned. But the interesting thing is muskets and bolt-action rifles that they want us to return to, that the bill says is okay to own.
Right.
Well, those actually were weapons of war.
Exactly.
So how ironic.
I don't know too many snipers that are out there using semi-automatic sniper rifles. I mean, I think a lot of them are actually bolt action, depending on how far out that they're shooting. So yeah, it again, guys, that's what I'm saying. All of this verbiage. Again, that's why I was so apolitical for so long, because to me, politicians talk in circles. They use words that confuse the general public because let's just face it, guys, we're not trained in political speak, right? So at the end of the day, it becomes really daunting for somebody to even want to be involved or learn more about these really, really critical opportunities that are in front of us for them to take away some of our rights. So again, going back to the UBC rule, make sure you use our link, gunowners.org/GOTV. Put in your comments. You have until December 7th, okay? As of today, that is 1 day. You have 1 day if you haven't already done it. Share the link. Once you send it in, you put it in on your phone, send that link to a friend, anybody that you know that is either a gun owner or thinking about becoming a gun owner. This is an easy one, guys. This doesn't have to go any further than where it already is. And then, yeah, listen, stay tuned to Go News for so much more information as it pertains to what's going on in the Second Amendment and in the firearms community. Eric, any closing thoughts?
As with all these things, this is going to affect the average person. The ban that we were just talking about that they're proposing, it's going to ban commonly owned firearms that will prevent good people from protecting themselves. It won't disarm criminals, but it will stop people like the guy you and I know who works here at Gun Owners of America, Stephen Williford, who used his AR-15 to stop a mass shooter. And that would be tragic if good people are not going to be able to be that sheepdog, to protect themselves, their family, their friends, and instead they're going to be at the mercy of the bad guys and the criminals. So it's important for us to speak out. And we've given viewers a way to do that with the universal background checks. So please go to that gunowners.org/GoTV. That will make a huge difference, has a tremendous impact. We've already generated tens of thousands of these. So just encourage you. We want to set records with this one. So please add your voice to it.
Yeah, let's set a record, guys, because I mean, like we said earlier, the background checks are currently setting a record, so we know people are out there buying guns, so this pertains to a lot of people, so we expect to see a lot of comments going in. Eric, thanks for joining us as always.
Absolutely.
This has been the latest edition of Go News. Catch you guys next week with the latest in the Second Amendment community.